call it one of our perennial bugbears, the subject of shrinkflation. And Wendy, I know it's something you take very seriously. It makes you so irritated when brands try and sneak it past us without our noticing. So thank you for continuing to call them out. And if anyone listening has recent examples to share with us, we'd love to hear your comments on a WhatsApp to 072 567 1567, or you can give us a call on 021 446 0567. We've spoken many times before about the Coke cans that went from 330 to 320 mils or whatever it was.
Chocolate
the soap
bars
that has a little ding in the bottom all of a sudden. The chocolate bars that shrank. I mean, it's not a new phenomenon. But Wendy, the particular one you want to flag this week, really is, it seems so devious at face value. It really, to me, seemed beyond the pale.
Absolutely. Just two other devious ones that come to mind. There was that Protex soap where they just took a scoop out of the top rather than remolding the whole thing, which they did away with after that. And then an American one, which I'm sure will come here, was a jar of peanut butter. So they kept the jar looking exactly the same size, but they put a big, was as if they'd stuck a thumbprint on the underneath. So a huge, big...
Oh, concave sort of indentation.
Yes, indentation's the word, yes.
To like the bottom of a wine bottle.
To take the weight down, the volume down. Can you... Exactly, like one of those.
Well, that's very relevant to the one we're talking about today, because it has to do with hoping people won't notice something on the bottom of the box. Tell us more.
So suffice it to say that when manufacturers increase their pack sizes, and it doesn't happen often, but when they do it, they really, really, really want us to know about it. So they plaster the fact very conspicuously on the front or the top of their packs where it's impossible to miss it. So case in point, when Dairy Maid increased its ice cream tub volume from 1.8 litres to 2 litres some time ago, that tub lid had 2 litres printed on it, on the bottom left corner of the lid, and then in the top right corner, a bigger sort of red tab stating more value now, in capital letters, 2 litres. Do you remember 2 litres was your standard ice cream container tub? 1 litre.
For many years.
It was a 2 litre tub. So when the manufacturer more recently, end of last year, decided to downsize the tub back to 1.8 litres, there was no such shout out to consumers. Quite the opposite. The only place that you can find those numbers is underneath the tub, because that's where we all look to see important information. Well, actually, we should be doing that.
Well, okay, so Wendy, I'm smiling a little bit because I may well be the only person in Cape Town who does look at the bottom of tubs when I shop.
What are you looking for when you do that?
To see who made the packaging, because my husband works in the industry and I don't want to take up the wrong cream
That's
cheese.
Interesting. I might do it because I want to see the recycling number.
Okay,
yeah.
So you may well
that's where you find it.
Really
but I think it's safe to say most consumers, you and I, are fairly unusual in when you consider the mass consumerism.
Most people do not pick up a tub and turn it upside down to see what's
and the
on
manufacturers
the bottom.
must be very, very aware of that. So you can't say it's anything but sneaky, right?
Yeah.
So Jonathan Tarr was among those who took great exception to the volume of this product only being declared underneath the tub. And so he took to Facebook a few weeks ago to say, Dairy Maid, shame on you. You've decreased from 2 litres to 1.8 litres and hid it from your customers. Why have you put the size underneath the tub? And many people commented with hashtag shrinkflation. And Jonathan then added, I just don't like the way the new weight is hidden under the tub. I doubt if they had increased the tub to 2.25 kilograms, it would be there. I think it's despicable that they hide the new size underneath the tub, especially as, and this is an important part of shrinkflation, the outer dimensions of the tub are basically the same as 2 litre tubs. So most would not even notice. And that is the point of it. If they wanted you to notice, number one, they'd say now in smaller size. Has anybody ever seen that?
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
And they would put it in red in the same way as they put 2 litres. So I think in those Facebook comments, Jonathan summed up what most consumers feel about shrinkflation, which is the practice of the price staying the same or in some cases even going up. And when you question that, they'll say, well, it would have gone up more if we hadn't made the pack so smaller, that the manufacturers, that is. Okay. And in almost every case, the weight diminishes slightly, enough to diminish the manufacturer's input costs to a meaningful extent for them, but not enough, also they hope or intend, that consumers will notice and respond negatively. But many do, of course, and now the term shrinkflation has become very well known and understood globally since I first started talking about it. When I first started exposing this, 15 to 20 years ago, the word shrinkflation
didn't really exist in the lexicon.
No. So I was pretty sure that hiding the pack size underneath the tub was a contravention of labeling regulations, given that pack sizes need to be clearly displayed to consumers so that we can make an informed choice, right?
Okay, so it's beyond the ethics of hiding it.
Yeah.
You felt that there was potentially a legal infraction here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because most of our consumer protection laws are around disclosure, transparency, that kind of thing, in the consumer's interest. So I consulted the registered dietitians and labeling experts of the Stellenbosch-based FACTS, that's Food and Allergy Consulting and Testing Services.
And what did they think?
So their response was pretty unequivocal. All foodstuffs must carry a quantity indication as per the Legal Metrology Act. SANS 289, which is the National Declaration of Required Standards, indicates the label of a prepackaged product, except a label on a surface clearly intended as a base, shall bear a declaration of the net quantity of the product. So you can't put it underneath the
law
base.
actually specifies you can't put it on the bottom. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because, you and I said most consumers wouldn't think to look for it there.
Exactly.
And even if they were looking for it, they'd turn the pack several
times
angles around
horizontally,
to
not
try and
vertically.
Find it, yeah. So, the facts, people said if it's not indicated anywhere else on the label, which is more conspicuous, in other words, if it's only on the underside of the bottom of the tub, this can be taken to the NRCS, the National Regulator for Compulsory Standards, and the National Consumer Commission.
Okay, so facts were absolutely of the opinion that it's definitely challengeable in legal terms.
Sure.
Wendy, you didn't just take Twitter's word for it that this has happened. I know
No.
you went into the store and
I
had
wanted
a
to see
look
it
with your own eyes.
I've been caught before.
Okay, so what did you find?
No offense to Jonathan. So, I found this Country Fresh range, Dairy Made Country Fresh, which Jonathan was talking about. It was displayed for sale in freezers in my local Checkers, as I said, alongside in the immediate vicinity of two other ice cream brands, both of them in 2-litre tubs, and tubs which looked no bigger than the Country Fresh 1.8-litre tubs, which didn't have a 1.8 visible. So you saw 2-litre, and your assumption would be, so you're comparing the prices of uneven size
packs.
Yeah, mismatched. Yeah. So you're not getting, most people would just look at the price and make a decision, and they would come to a false conclusion about, how price competitive this particular 1.8-litre tub was. So, for example, the Gutty brand tub sell for, let's call it 80 Rand, 79.99, but on 2-litre tubs. And this Country Fresh range was selling also for 80 Rand, but at 1.8 litres instead of 2 litres, obviously more expensive because you're getting less for your 8 per litre, per milliliter. So I put it to Dairy Made that the company appears to upsize and downsize its tubs periodically, but only when it reverts to a 2-litre tub. The traditional standard tub size is the attention of consumers actively drawn to the volume of the pack.
And how did they respond?
Well, I was told by a spokesman that we can assure you that when we moved to 1.8 litres, we dropped our cost price to retailers. We have initiated an investigation with our customer. By that, I assume they mean Checkers. That 1.8 litre is supposed to retail at between 75 Rand and 77 Rand.
And it was on sale at 79.
It was selling, but now when I went and checked this morning, there's a huge discount, and it's obviously not connected with my query. Things go on good sales often, but it was in a good special. It's currently selling for 50 Rand a tub, 1.8 litre tub, instead of 80 Rand. But that's beside the point. I just thought I'd share that.
Okay.
But as for the main point of my query was, why have you hidden the volume underneath the tub? We have adapted the size and pricing of our tubs in response to market dynamics. Sorry, this is about why the tubs are going up and down. Inflationary pressures and consumer preferences. Now, I wonder, this flood of consumers saying, please, can you give our ice cream to us in a 1.8 litre tub instead of a 2? Yeah, right. Okay. About this tub this product that's going up and down, and as you will know, Pippa, more than most, the packaging is not an inconsiderable cost. Yes.
Well, you've got to change the mold on a packaging is an expensive business.
Of course
because
it is.
The molds themselves are very expensive capital items to buy.
Right.
It's not done lightly or not on a whim.
So, the tub you are referencing, the more value 2 liters. So I found that actually in my my chest freezer when I was doing a defrosting exercise at the weekend. I just happened to find it was still current within its best before date, and it had that now more value 2 liter thing.
Yeah.
And that was according to Dairy Maid to signal a volume change back to 2 liters from the 1.8 liter version, which we trialed in 2017, and they discontinued that in late 2018. Okay.
But now it's back again.
But now, I don't know what happened in between, but now at the end of last year, this transition from 2 liters to 1.8 liters was launched in September 2023. But various flavors had different runouts linked to supply. Our colleague Bruce Hong was raised with the manufacturers the fact that this caused a lot of confusion for retailers because they had both tubs in the market at the same time. So in one case they were advertising, I think ShopRite was advertising a 1.8 litre tub, but the description in those broadsheet ads was 2 liters.
Ooh,
so there was a lot of, and I queried it with them, and they said yes, this was a mistake. And
there was an overlap of two ranges, basically. But the big question is, why did they not make it obvious that they were downsizing again?
So, well, before we get there, they downsized them and lowered our cost price to consumers accordingly. Well, I would need to go into a full investigation of that, but that's normally not why it's done at the cost of the new tub molds and everything else. I mean, to support affordable enjoyment of our product in challenging times.
So we can't afford 2 liters of ice cream, but we'll be able to afford 1.8 liters. I mean, really, that's I'm sorry.
So here comes the nub. When designing the new pack, we placed the volume declaration next to the ingredient statement and nutritional table using 146. Well, that regulation 146.2 had nothing to do with where you put it on the tub. It's just saying what it has to state. Yes, because I went back to facts. They said that's
nonsense.
Irrelevant.
Okay.
However, we completely concede that in our haste to launch the new packaging, we failed to comply with other regulatory requirements. We should have displayed the volume on the selling face of the product and not at the bottom of the tub. So it was just in a rush. They missed it. It wasn't intentional. It was they obviously weren't in a rush when they went from 1.8 back up to 2, because then they put the red on and they drew everyone's attention on the lid. But when they went smaller,
how gullible
gosh,
do you think
the
we are,
same
Wendy?
team of people just had a little brain fart.
Overlooked it.
Yeah.
How gullible do they think customers are?
I know, because they can't say we did it on purpose. What does that look like? But we all know what it is.
Of course they did. Of course they did. Okay.
We'd like to sincerely apologize to our shoppers for this oversight. Our intention was never to mislead our shoppers, but to give them an affordable pack size.
An affordable pack size, if you were really going to try and make that argument, would be to offer their ice cream in 500 gram and 1 litre tubs, Wendy. I'm sorry. I don't buy for a second that you are dropping by 200 millilitres and passing that off as we're just answering listeners, please, so that they can have some ice cream at least. Exactly. I really don't buy it.
So then I said, what are you going to do about it, if anything? We want to reassure our consumers that we're doing all that we can to make amends. We've swiftly instigated a change in our packaging to include the volume declaration on the front panels of all variants. Note they're not saying on the lid, on the top. That's on the front panels.
Okay.
We're committed to the highest standards of regulatory compliance, which we hope is evident from the swift action we've taken to address this issue and through our ongoing constructive collaboration with the regulator as part of their industry-wide initiative to ensure full compliance.
So, oops, sorry, we got caught and we'll fix it.
Yes.
Let's just call it what it is. Okay, well, Wendy, well done for pushing back on it. They are, of course, not the only brand guilty of this.
No.
There are many, and several of our listeners are actually commenting on examples that they've encountered quite recently.
I saw another one in my freezer.
Yeah.
long ago. It's not something I would ever buy. So somebody must have used it as a container. Nestle Roller variant. So these are sort of premium. So they tend to put the premium ones in the smaller pack. It's 1.5 liters, although the tub does look smaller. But the 1.5 is also only underneath. That was a Nestle product. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how old that product is, or even if it's still on the market. But yeah, so they aren't alone in this.
Okay, I mean, Adrian making the point, surely they wouldn't pay to change the machine that makes the tub. They would just put less ice cream into the same tub. It's such a small amount, though, to move from 2 litres to 1.8 litres is hardly noticeable. I mean, that's less than a cup extra. So would you even notice it if you took the lid off a 2-litre container? Would you even know the difference
that is
if
what
there was
they're
only
doing.
1.8 inside?
Maybe that is what they're doing, because the moulding would be very expensive.
Even more reason then why they should be declaring it in bold,
absolutely,
large,
because you open
red.
the lid and you think, what's happened
what's
here?
inside
My
here?
ice cream shrank.
So here are a couple of other examples coming in from our listeners. Anonymous saying Lucky Star pilchards in tomato sauce. That label should read
brand.
tomato sauce with pilchards. I recently opened a can and found that more than half of the content was tomato sauce.
What the weight was there.
Is there any legal minimum requirement of fish is the question.
Yes, canned fish is very strictly, we'll get to something a bit later,
Okay.
very, very regulated in terms of what kind of fish, or I know with tuna in particular, how much water, the flakes, whether it,
is chunks or not. Okay.
So I would like to, I'm going to go and have a look at the weight of that tin and see if it's changed.
And then just one more before we must cross to the news team, and this disturbs me greatly.
Yes.
The Lindt chocolate, the 99% dark chocolate slab, somebody comments. The slab is exactly the same size visually as the 85% dark chocolate. But on opening, it has special packing inside. The blocks are smaller. And when examining the size, it's only 50 grams, whereas all the others are 100 grams.
Classic example of shrinkflation.
Absolutely. And I would
they
never
put
have
a
noticed
premium variant in, and we'll get to the tuna just now. Same story. Put the premium at a shrunken grammage or literage, and make the pack look the same size as the others. So you're just looking at price, which most consumers just do that, and you think, oh, this is a better product, same price. I'll take that.
Both Wendy and I feel that's really beyond the pale. It is deliberately obscuring the information and hoping that listeners are not going to notice that your size has been reduced. Here's one who fell for it. Graziella's written in, Wendy, saying, oh no, I've just bought a 1.8 litres of Country Fresh for $79.99 at Quick Spa about an hour ago. I thought it was 2 litres. It felt and looked like 2 litres. And yes, the weight is at the bottom. I'm really sorry, and Graziella, I hope you don't think of it with every spoon of that ice
that's
cream.
The thing.
I would be
it's sour taste in the mouth.
Taste in the mouth.
Yes.
Yeah. And with very sage advice, saying it's shocking the lengths the manufacturers will go to pull the wool over consumers' eyes. Pick n Pay usually have the cost per litre on their shelf
Unit
pricing.
price. Yes.
That is the price I always check.
It's not as easy to find as it used to be, but it is there. Remember, we did a show on that.
Well, I believe we've got a voice note speaking to that issue, so let's take a listen to that.
Pippa, good afternoon. Would you ask Wendy, please, what her take is on the practice that Pick n Pay, for instance, has discontinued of putting the cost per kilogram, for instance, cheese. You'll buy 450 grams for X rand and 800 grams for Y rand, but they do not any longer put on how many rands per kilogram it costs. Thank you, Pippa. It's Chris in Claremont.
Thanks, Chris. I know we challenged it at the time, and they said they were going to revert. Wendy,
and I've seen it.
Okay.
They what they did is they changed their whole shelf label system, upgraded it, and somebody didn't think of the unit prices, which I've always commended Pick n Pay for, and ShopRite Group, by the way, ShopRite and Checkers. And then they said, we are bringing it back. And I've certainly seen it coming back. It's possibly a rollout situation if it's not in the store that our listener Chris frequents. But just to say on the subject of cheese, that might be an exception. It's something I've been meaning to check out, because I get this a lot. Cheese is very confusing. It's very expensive, right? So any premium product, you need to watch out for sneaky price and pack size declarations. And so, yes, sometimes you need a unit size, because this one's being sold in a 400 gram pack and that one is 750 or 800. And sometimes the price per 100 liters or per kilogram, but you're thinking you're getting a standard. No, I'm confusing myself and the listeners, but basically I want to check how well, if at all, the pack sizes on cheese are, or the unit prices rather. That's the thing. You want to be able to compare across pack sizes without doing your own complicated maths.
Yeah.
So that's what the unit price is for. If I'm not mistaken, it used to be in the bottom left-hand side of the shelf label at Pick and Pay, and it's now on the right-hand bottom and much more obscure. You have to really know what you're looking for to see it, but it is there.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Wendy, it's not only about shrinkflation, it's also about skimpflation, which we've spoken about before, and we've only got 2 or 3 minutes left. This is a different phenomenon where the packaging size may have changed the same, but the quality of what's inside has been decreased because the premium ingredient, for example, you've always used the example of the chicken pie. If your chicken pie is the same size and looks the same on the outside and costs the same, but inside it's gone from 70% chicken to 50% chicken, that is skimpflation. And it's fascinating to me how many people are flagging that today, whether it's their tins of chopped tomatoes that suddenly seem pink liquid rather than visible tomatoes in water, whether it is Nestle chocolate tasting like it's watered down is somebody's comment. There's been a flurry of skimpflation examples coming through that I'll hand over to you. I don't know if you want to do a follow-up investigation.
It's so hard. I often do, especially with chocolate bars. I will ask the manufacturer about it, and they always say, no, we haven't. And unless you've got a really old, maybe we should start keeping our wrappers. Especially with, really.
Or take a photograph of them.
Or take a photo or something, document them. Then you've got to find them. Maybe create a special shrinkflation folder. Maybe that's what I should be doing. It's much harder to prove than the simple reduction, because that they can't argue with. That's happened. I just wanted to say something just quickly before we ended about tuna, for example. I was saying earlier that tinned fish is very highly regulated in this country. So shredded tuna is not a random description. There's a lot more water and little flaky bits in those cans, and they're less expensive for a reason. And then you get, next up is chunks of tuna, and the best value, the best quality rather, is solid tuna.
Okay.
And so, because it has to turn out in one solid piece, you're getting, as the name just indicates, a solid chunk, a solid piece of tuna, right? So there was an example in Pick and Pay. They were selling shredded tuna for 25 Rand, the chunks and the solid tins for 30 Rand each. Now, I would always go for the solid because it's better. It's a superior product. Yes. And if you were looking at price, you'd think bargain, let me take some solid tins. And the tins might look the same size, but you really got to check, because while the shredded and the chunks there were different brands. One was No Name, one was something else. But while the shredded and the chunks were 170 gram tins, which has become the standard, they used to be 185, I think. The solid tuna was just 119 grams. Sure. So you're getting a lot less for your 30 Rand. And so it's a higher always look at the unit price, or if it's a spa that doesn't have a unit price, look at the weight of the tins. Anything that's a bit premium, right? It's a good chance it's going to be in a smaller pack.
And thank you for flagging it for us and reminding us about the importance of reading the labels and reading those unit prices on the shelves.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on CapeTalk.